They would fight like tooth and nail. She knew she was going to be killed by her daughter.
It's a crime that made headlines around the globe.
I am remorseful, I am, but the real story isn't what was told.
Suitcase killer Heather Mack convicted of helping murder her mom over 10 years ago during a luxury vacation in Bali, Indonesia.
I just can't wrap my head around the way she died.
Emotional and horrified, Sheila Von Wiese, Mack's sister, recounted the details of the killing.
What they did to her poor, sad, pathetic, dead body, and stuffing it into a suitcase.
But Sheila's longtime friend says only part of the sensational story made the news. The missing part began with Sheila's dream of becoming a mom. Sheila met successful jazz musician and composer James Mack.
She must have been about 3 months pregnant, and they got married. Sheila wasn't happy about her childhood. She felt it was insufficient, blandly middle class, and she was going to give her daughter all the opportunities that Sheila did not have.
And now new aspects of Heather Mack's story are being investigated by documentary producers. They spoke with the family therapist who said Heather desperately wanted to impress her mom.
She just wanted to be approved of and loved by her mother. And her mother couldn't do it.
Sheila and James lived in the wealthy Chicago suburb of Oak Park. They welcomed a baby girl and gave her a life of luxury. But at the time, friends were worried about young Heather.
She never got toilet trained. Then I got to see firsthand. They were breastfeeding, nursing her 6-year-old daughter. As soon as they saw me, they splintered. They acted like it was a guilty crime.
Sadly, Jim's health deteriorated, and when Heather was just 10 years old, he received a deadly diagnosis.
He ended up getting colon cancer, and they were on a trip, and he actually died over in Greece. It was devastating.
Sheila told a close friend her daughter was angry and violent.
Well, she told me that she was being abused by Heather. She was constantly being attacked physically, and Heather had an explosive temper. There's no question about that. She would erupt at the slightest provocation.
Another friend said Heather blamed her mom for her dad's death.
He died right there on their vacation, and Sheila wanted to continue. The next leg of their trip, they attended without Jim, and it did something to Heather. The callous nature of proceeding on their trip after her father was on ice, and she thought that her mother had something to do with his death.
Over a 10-year period, police responded to reports of domestic violence at the family's home dozens of times.
She would bite Sheila, she would hit her.
But by the time Heather was 18, a trip to Bali would shatter the family's lives forever. Sheila flew her teenage daughter from Chicago to Bali, hoping to mend their relationship. Instead, trouble followed, in the form of Heather's then-boyfriend, Tommy Schaefer, who Heather secretly bought a flight for on her mother's credit card. Roughly 11 hours after Tommy's flight touched down in Bali, surveillance cameras captured Tommy and Heather heading to the lobby with a silver suitcase. They placed it in the back of a taxi before running off. The taxi driver took the abandoned luggage to a police station where cops opened it and made a horrifying discovery. An Indonesian taxi driver has delivered a heavy abandoned suitcase to police who find a horrifying sight. Sheila Von Wiese's bloody, half-naked body found stuffed inside, bludgeoned to death with a glass fruit bowl. The next day, Heather is arrested at a Bali hotel and jailed. Indonesian police find 2 cell phones full of text messages hatching a murder plot. Police said the text revealed the plan was initially for Heather to kill her mom. Tommy wrote, "Try your best. Can you whack her in the head with a big expletive pole?" Heather responded, "Can you?" Tommy wrote, "Yes. Come in the hallway right now."
That's the key. That's the magic bullet that opens up the case.
Almost 2 years later, in a jailhouse phone call with a crime reporter, Heather recounted the details of the murder from the moment Tommy secretly arrived.
Well, she didn't know at first. She was asleep, and of course I left the room, and I snuck off to the beach with him.
Her now toddler daughter, Stella, also living in her cell, could be heard in the background. Heather claimed her mom was killed over an argument about Tommy's surprise flight, which she had charged to her mom's credit card.
And she woke up, and that's when she went to the reception, and they said Tommy Schaefer checked in under your credit card, and she just went nuts. Said, let's go to the room. When we went to the room, we went to sleep.
From there, she said things only got worse.
I went to Tommy's room, and I just said, I don't know what to do. And he said, let me talk to her. And he looked at me, it's okay. And he came down, and it just escalated again.
The point of no return came when 18-year-old Heather announced she was pregnant with Tommy's child.
She was so angry. I told her I was pregnant, and she went around the room looking for a knife. And she was just screaming and telling me that was when I was going to die. That was when I was going to die. And I said, Tommy, help me. And Tommy walked over to her, and she went and she grabbed Tommy's neck, and he just smacked her. Smacked her over and over and over and over and over. And I ran to the bathroom. I said, Tommy, what are we going to do? Tommy, what are we going to do? Tommy, what are we going to do?
What they did was kill Sheila. Prosecutors said Heather covered her mother's mouth while Tommy bludgeoned her. A panel of Indonesian judges found Heather and Tommy guilty. Heather was given 10 years and Tommy was sentenced to 18 years. Tommy remains locked up overseas, but Heather was eventually extradited to the U.S. Her American lawyers said Sheila was a cruel and abusive mom. They argued for Heather to get time served after spending 7 years jailed in Indonesia and 2 years at an Illinois correctional facility.
She was very manipulative at a young age.
Federal prosecutors and Sheila's family said Heather had a history of lies and manipulation. They accused her of plotting to kill her mom to gain access to a $1.5 million trust fund. Heather pleaded guilty and avoided going on trial in the U.S.
We are relieved that the court today gave Sheila the justice she so rightly deserves.
At sentencing, she finally expressed remorse, saying, "I can't take back what I did. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I understand the love my mother had for me."
That's the first time I've ever heard Heather apologize, and I did appreciate that. That's the first time I heard her admit her responsibility.
The judge sentenced her to 26 years in a U.S. federal prison.
We got to keep the sentence in perspective. You know, we started this case with her facing a life sentence, and the fact that we're now down to 26 years, we're pleased with that.
But in a recent exclusive prison phone call with documentary producer Lisa Liu and her mom's friend Diana Ellis, Heather said the sentence was too harsh.
I just feel like even if I wouldn't have had to go through my Indonesia time, 26 years might have been fair. They didn't count it at all.
Heather questioned why prosecutors didn't consider the alleged abuse she said she suffered as a child.
No matter what I did when I was a kid, she wasn't happy with it. Like, it wasn't enough for her. It wasn't,
I know.
you know?
I know. I saw that in all the letters she wrote to me
I know
over the
you
years.
did.
The family therapist backed up Heather's claims.
Well, she had been given a precious child, and she didn't know how to maintain or care for or nurture someone who wanted her 24/7 to be attentive.
Now a mom herself, Heather's daughter Stella lives with a cousin in Colorado who was granted custody over the objections of both Heather and Tommy's mom. During the exclusive prison call, Heather reflected on what things would be like between Stella and her grandmother if she were still alive.
I wonder a lot how she would have treated Stella. Like, I wonder if she would have treated Stella better than she treated me.